To lead my own way in the future is I want to be able to create mental health talks so I can go into workplaces to inspire the leaders that are supposed to inspire the people. That means teaching them how to be present, how to work on themselves on a daily basis, and then we'll go into the nitty-gritty things of the individuals that they're supposed to work with.
In life, we all have the opportunity to create ripples in the world, and together those ripples can make waves. As the host of the Leading Our Own Way podcast, the story, insights and reflections of Andrew White will help anyone experiencing a toxic workplace and also inspire listeners to start leading their own way.
Be yourself. Just be yourself. I keep saying to you, just be yourself.
But as he applied his passion for teaching, he was unfortunately a victim of bullying and experienced the toxic workplace culture that affected his physical, mental and emotional health.
You have to start with yourself. You have to be present. You have to learn how to lead yourself first. That whole typical scenario of putting the mask on and the plane over your own mouth before you go and help everybody else.
Andrew, welcome to Share.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, Steve. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. I've put you on the other side of the mic.
And I'm sweating.
Now you know how your guests feel.
I know. It's actually, and I imagine, like, for them who are actually, I'm putting in a position to be vulnerable. And I don't even feel that vulnerable, but I'm nervous to be the guest. But imagine how they, them sharing their journey, how daunting it is. So I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got your own podcast, and obviously we're going to dig into some of the things in your story, some of the things that have happened in your life, why you do what you do. But I'd really like to start with, you obviously share a lot of stories now, but that was obviously, you were led to that point by your story, right? So I'd really like to know who is Andrew?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, you know what? I've learned that figuring out who Andrew is an ongoing journey. And I figured I won't ever find out, but man, I'm having fun learning. But for where I stand currently, Andrew is from Manchester, England. I was born into
I won't hold that against you.
Sorry?
I won't hold that against you as an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, how could I forget an Arsenal fan? Coming from Manchester, I'm the same colour as you, Manchester United. I'm a red, but I grew up playing basketball. Basketball kind of took me off the streets growing up. And it's not that I was on the streets; it probably prevented me from being on the streets. I grew up in a bit of a rough area, but it was, it was my home, and I loved it. But I moved over to cut a long story short. I moved over to Australia to be a primary school teacher. I originally came to play professional basketball. I was kind of just coming off the bench, not doing anything major, but, and then I came back, I went home, traveled the world. I always wanted to travel the world. I've always been a guy that just, has goals and has always kind of wanted to achieve them. And, you can see it in people's eyes. Oh, here we go, another big thing. But I've always kind of chased what I wanted. And I think that's probably what led me to Australia. Living the dream, traveling the world, and then coming back to study at Monash University to become a primary school teacher. Been a teacher in Australia for 13 years. And yeah, I mean, summing me up, basketball comes first in terms of my character and what my love lies. But I'm a family man now. I've got 2 beautiful children and a partner that moved over here with me. And we live the Aussie life down here in Melbourne. And yeah, like you say, I run a podcast, Leading Our Own Way. And I share beautiful stories from beautiful people who have been on a journey themselves. And it obviously led from something that I wanted to change and turn pain into purpose, growth into, grief into growth, and yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me, what led you to teaching?
Well, growing up, like I mentioned, I played basketball, but I always got into coaching. Refereeing gave me some cash growing up, and one friend asked me if I wanted to take over a little under 9s team, and I started just coaching kids, and I was good at it. I was just good at connecting with people. I've always been an open soul. I was quite shy at school, but basketball really brought it out of me. Community-based, being around people with, like-minded people, same, passions with the game. And coaching, I just got with the younger kids and, loved guiding them. I think that's really where it started. And as I grew up, I always had these aspirations of going to university and so on. I did, but I was a bit of a partier at university. I didn't get the best degree, if I'm being honest. I did a degree in leisure management and business marketing, and with a bit of IT at the side. It really wasn't me, looking back, and it was just a lot of partying, and I didn't get the best grade. I graduated with honours, but probably bottom end of honours. So I should never really been a teacher, but the basketball coaching grew with the ages. I started to coach the teenagers, under 14s, went to national finals in the UK Final Fours, under 16s, and then I coached the men. But I was a financial advisor before I went traveling, and I was helping people with, financial issues. But what I was earning some really good coin and some really good money. But what I realized, I sat there once and gone, I'm making all this money from people's problems, and that is not something I'm okay with. It funded my trip. I'm not going to lie. It funded my traveling partly, and got some financial support from the mother, which I'm still very grateful for, which allowed me to go to Australia and eventually live here. But and people kept putting me off teaching. A lot of people kept putting me off. No, it's too much. You'll get burnout. And it just kept coming back to me, and it just drawn me to it still. And I couldn't get on the course. After traveling, I got back home to the UK, and I tried to get on the English equivalent, or it's called a PGC. It's just like a 1 year. You attach it to the degree you've already had. But in England, there were so many issues with people becoming teachers. The recession hit here, and everyone was leaving their business and thought, right, the easy route out, get some holidays, it's half decent money, I'll go on to the university course. And I just couldn't get on it. Could not get on it. 2 years of trying. Well, I had friends who said that I can go and sleep on the floor in Australia and apply to Australia if you want. I was like, okay. Didn't think I would get out of it in a million years. Never thought I would even make the course. And I woke up mid-December 2011 and had an email sitting from Monash University offering me a place. All I needed was the money, and I had zero. So I somehow sold my car. Got a little help from a friend, actually, believe it or not, and my mum a little bit, and then 6 weeks later, I moved here. So within 6 weeks, I moved to Australia of making a decision to study, and then the idea was just to study for a year, and I never left. But that's really what drew the passion, because I always wanted to give to community. I always wanted to make a difference, and I could see myself impacting the layers. So class, then a small department, then a community, and then hopefully my goal was to support principals becoming principals, so I could impact a state maybe, or a number of communities. But I really always loved, passionate about people going to work happy. So I was always myself going to work every day, and I just loved that environment. But that quickly changed over a few years.
Yeah, and we'll dig into that. But I want to ask you, how did your time and how did your experience coaching the kids, then the teenagers, and then the men, how did that shape you as a teacher?
Well, it gave me, I was able to pull a lot of learnings, not necessarily from, well, yes, definitely from me as a coach, but all my coaches that I'd had growing up in the game of basketball. I didn't grow up with a dad. I didn't meet my dad till I was about 9, 10. So I didn't have that male figure in my life. And I think I wanted to be that, which really kind of led to my purpose. I've always trying to summed up my purpose in 3 lines: be the man I always needed, to be the father I always needed and wanted, to be the leader I always needed and wanted. And I think taking pieces of all my coaches and kind of taking the bits that I really loved, getting rid of that, going, no, that's good, but it's just not me. It's not how I think. It's not my philosophy. It worked, but it's just not my flavor. And I try and connect with the personalities because of I feel like my ability to connect and understand people at a deep level. I love getting to know what people like, what people don't like. How do they like to receive the ball? How did they like to run onto the ball in that scenario? And I think that's kind of what I transferred over to teaching. I understand how kids like to learn about maths in this method, in that way. Why does that kid not like writing? It's my job to inspire them to like writing, or at least get by it in a healthy, safe way. And I just love those challenges. So yeah, just taking pieces of everybody and putting it into my own little flavor, and then manipulating that year after year, day after day, month after month, and so on. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and I think that sounds a little bit like there's a lot of research now into experiential learning with kids. Really focusing on their strengths and weaknesses, and really focusing on their strengths around how do they want to learn, because we're all unique and we all learn in different ways, right? And then it moves it to workplaces. How do you lead people in workplaces? Because we're all unique again, right? So it's about, okay, how do we find out how people want to learn in a school or a university environment? Then when they get into a workplace, how can we actually unlock what their strengths are and how they actually want to be led, right? And I think you obviously have done a lot of work in leadership. You know a lot about that. Talk to me about, in a workplace, how do you think people can unlock how people would like to be led, and what's going to benefit and what's actually going to unlock their potential the most?
I think we have to start with connection. Leaders step in. I mean, I can only speak for the education system, but leaders tend to step up and step in and want to make a change. And it's not necessarily best change for the practice of where they're at. It's to embed their mark in a way. Again, I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm speaking of my experience, but they want to put their stamp on things to let everybody know, hey, I'm here now. We're going in this direction. They've never really stepped back and taken time. And then, in fairness to them, they're not always given the time, because the department above them goes, right, what are you going to make change? And they want to see that positive approach. They want to see that they're willing to make change, that they're going to dive in. And for me, that's not the right way. I think you need to sit back, get to know everybody's ticks. How does that person tick? What's their advantages? What do they like? What they don't like? Model a safe space for them to make mistakes. As soon as they feel safe in making mistakes, they'll start to shine, believe it or not, because they'll be able to come to you. They'll be able to feel safe around you. And when they feel safe around you, they'll go off and do wonders for you. And
Well,
if
it increases their
it's about
confidence.
looking good,
It increases their confidence.
absolutely.
Right? Because they have the confidence to actually, even if they're going to maybe make a mistake, they've just got the freedom to do, and whatever happens, it's not a failure, it's actually a learning.
Yeah. But for me, I'd actually be making mistakes on purpose in front of them. I always feel like I used to make mistakes as a teacher in front of the kids on purpose. Oh, crap, I made them. What? I just spelt something wrong. I can't believe it. That's all right. How do I fix it? Just model safety. Model making mistakes. Ask questions. Actually, I don't know this. Now, I know you're an expertise in this, Jackie. Can you help me out here? They'll feel empowered walking into the office to be a part of your journey because you've asked them. Go and ask somebody who works on the floor, the bottom end, whether it's an aide or a janitor or whatever it may be. Ask them, hey, I need some support here. I don't actually know what to do here. Can you give me help? I'm not Superman. I just think showing your vulnerabilities is really the top thing, top point to start for me. And it sounds very simple, and people are always looking for leadership philosophies. I'm not going there. The people who develop philosophies for me don't have the personalities in mind. Well, they can't, because they're not seeing the personalities that work in that frame. I saw on LinkedIn the other day a principal mention, I've forgotten his name now, and it was amazing because he messaged me privately and he said, look, does a carpenter turn up to a house to fix the house with a set of with one particular set of tools? He has a van outside with a million different tools because he doesn't know how he's going to fix it that day. I love that, and it's sticking with me. It goes, maybe he says it a little bit more intelligent than I just did, but I think you see where I'm coming from. And I think that's what we need to do when we do go and lead, is just get to know everybody, what they like, what they don't like, the families. And, then you can understand maybe why they want to leave on the dot. It's not that they're lazy. It's because they want to go home to their families, or the others might stay late because they don't have family, so they don't need to rush home. I don't know, just little tiny things at the bottom of the chain we've got to think about. And I think you can really bring the best out of people if you have to start with yourself. You have to be present. You have to learn how to lead yourself first. That whole typical scenario of putting the mask on and the plane over your own mouth before you go and help everybody else. And I just want my leaders to be present, because if they're present, they're going to come to work happy and mindful and emotionally aware and Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. My son has just changed from, he's just gone into year 10. He's just changed from a, traditional high school, all boys school it was, but he's just changed to the industry school, which was the Australian Industry Trade College. And the interesting thing about that is that they split education and industry, right? So every term, if it's a 10-week term, 5 weeks is in education, and half the cohort of year 10 in education and half are in industry. So they kind of balance that because it's a school that's really leading for people to go into a trade, whether it's, bricklaying or carpentry or being a sparky or even, a beautician or a hairdresser or anything like that. So their whole thing is about setting them up over the next 3 years to, when they finish, they're already completing an apprenticeship. They're already got a head start and they're heading forward. So the focus really isn't all education. So my son's been there, for a couple of weeks now, and it's interesting. I was talking to him and he's like, "Oh, Dad, I really love it because I'm doing my maths right now." He doesn't really like maths, right? His brother loves maths, but he doesn't really like maths. But he said to me, "Oh, I'm doing my maths assignment, Dad, and it's all linked to industry." Right. So he said, so the assessment is, okay, you've got, you're running a plumbing business or whatever it is, and you've got to work out whether it's better to actually have your own business or get contractors in. And then he's working out tax rates and all that kind of stuff, but it's all linked to industry. Right. And when we first did the tour of the school last year, it was amazing. They were saying, oh, the maths teachers actually take them out into the middle and they draw in chalk on the ground, and they it's all experiential stuff. It's all stuff that relates to industry, and it's all out of the box a little bit. So it's not about this is just, I'm going to draw some equations up on the board and you can answer them, and you're going to learn, and then if you make a mistake, I'll show you how it's all leading back to where their vision is moving forward, is that they want to be in an industry, sparky, plumber, whatever they want to do.
Yeah. It's real life learning. I think, and we're teaching these kids for, I don't know what the stats are, but it's something like, I forgot what the stats are, but we're preparing for these kids for the majority of them. 80% of the kids will have jobs that don't even exist now.
Uh-huh.
And so we've got to.
Isn't that a scary statistic?
It is. It is. It is. It isn't. It's kind of exciting at the same time. So let's take the pressure off and let's get these kids happy at school again. Because all I see really, I go to a lot of different schools now because I've stepped back and I reverted back to a casual teacher. But I just really worry about focus and memory. The basics of just being a human being is really, really what bothers me. We give our children babysitting tools in terms of devices. We talk about food and we talk about sleep. Children don't sleep. I had 2 children today tell me they were on the iPad all night. And the parents probably didn't even know. The iPad probably was in the bedroom and they played on it all night. They fell asleep for 5 minutes. And hopefully it's not because I'm boring.
Yep.
But they did.
And I'm sure their TikTok and their Snapchat was going ding, ding, ding all night, right?
Well, there were grade 1s and 2s, so I'm hoping it wasn't TikTok. But but no, you'd be surprised. There were grade 2s and 3s that find my podcast TikTok, and they comment going, "We found Mr. White." So it does exist, and that's quite scary because even that in itself, they bring the attention span of 20 seconds, that that swipe, and they bring that there's a transferable mindset to the classroom. So the teachers don't really have a chance, and we've lost the basics. And I know it's illegal for kids not to have social media to a certain, here, 16 in Australia now, but that doesn't matter if the parents are going to give them a phone. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. So what we do need to be teaching people is the effects. I mean, you can see my brain books. I just love the brain. And then we've got to start there and start with our bodies. And I think we need to be teaching them the effects. We can make all these regulations up as much as we want, but if we can teach the families the effects on the mind and body, and it's not to put them off social media because, hey, I'm on it. I do it for the podcast. I'll be contradicting myself if I wasn't. but at least I'm mindful and I'm aware and I self-reflect on my own dips. Children don't have that ability, and that's kind of really what scares me on a daily basis now. I see a lot of kids spinning around, and I just didn't see that at the beginning of my career.
Yeah. And
Mm.
I think it's interesting as well is that from a school perspective, the dynamics of families, the dynamics of society has changed so much, but school hasn't caught up to that. So one thing I just don't agree with is homework, right? Now I'm speaking to a
Mhm.
teacher here, so I don't know
Yeah.
what your thoughts are, but
No, I
I
agree.
sit
Yeah.
I sit there and I go, if a kid's going to go there for 6 to 7 hours a day, years ago, you'd usually have, decades ago, you'd have one parent at home at night, you know, but now you've got most households, both parents have to work because of just the way the economy is now, way cost of living and just the way the dynamics are, right? And I think there's definitely pros to that. There's pros and cons to everything. But, so you've got kids that are, yeah, kind of attached to digital devices, not sleeping well. And I think you've hit it on the head there with, I think their sleep is poor. Um, and, and then you've got, you're saying, okay, well, put we're going to send them home with, a couple of hours of homework each day. And then we wonder why our relationships with family, our relationship with our kids, our relationship and connection with others
Mm.
is kind of deteriorating because, like I don't know how many families now actually eat around a dining room table for dinner.
We do, may I add. But yeah, no, I agree
Oh, so
because
you're the one.
yeah, I must be the only one. Yeah, well, because most parents are swapping ships. They're passing ships of the night because maybe they're on shift patterns themselves. There's definitely layers to this conversation for sure. Homework. If imagine parents had more connection time with their children. Let's say they go to a restaurant. You could do homework at the restaurant. Oh, how much do these 2 meals add up to, darling? Right? Real is bringing back to what you said about your son. That's real life learning in the moment. I
True.
had a family when I used to work at my old school in Melbourne before I moved. A family would go in. It was quite an affluent area, so people would often go away for 6 months. Like in here in Australia, people go away for 6 months at a time. And the family said to me, "Can you sort out like some packs of work for us whilst we go?" I went, "Nope." And she looked at me and quite funny. And I said, "It doesn't matter if I'm the best teacher on the planet. I can't offer what the world can offer. You're
Mhm.
going on a life-altering trip or one that these kids will remember forever. And it might be your second trip. It might even be, you might have 2 more after this. Get them to journal. I know that's really hard. I get it. But get them to journal. Make it just sink in seamlessly without they even knowing rather than sitting down. Oh, right, here's Mr. White's homework. You've got to do it for when you return, even though I probably wasn't their teacher by the time they returned anyway. Just get out there. And yeah, the world is the best place. I don't think kids should be sat in a classroom for 6 hours. I did open a school where children was all about being up and about in nature and stuff like that. We went and did nature maths outside with using the twigs and the leaves. And I know it sounds fluffy, but these kids, it was great to do. But I remember I did maths outside in the rain in the car park once. I mean, it was safe car park. It's not how you imagine. It was a safe car park, but we did it because we needed the lines and the chalk and stuff like that because we had a lot of grass, and it was beautiful to do that. I know mainstream schools can't do that because communities are so big and numbers are so tight and the pressure from the department and all of that. I understand it, but yeah, I just didn't have those resources. I thought I always share that story about that family. It's happened a
Yeah.
few times, but I say, no, I can't offer what the world is. That is the best classroom.
Mm. One of my previous guests, Steve Carroll, who is into digital, was into real estate. He's a POM as well, but he supports and they do a bike ride each year, uh, and it supports Hands Across the Water. And he was talking about how they went to this village, and they took all these kids that had kind of never really seen the water, never seen the beach, and they took them down to the beach, right? And it was next to this resort. And he said he was walking kind of back to the resort where he was staying one day, and there was these kids just sitting on their iPads, and they're looking at these kids that have come down from the villages, seen water like, for the first time, and they're splashing and playing. And he's like, "Oh, just one," like these kids came up to him and said, "Oh, we're just wondering, look, would we be able to go and play with those kids? Because they look like they're having a really good time, right? But these kids would actually, prior to that, sitting on their iPads. And I think it really is about promoting and introducing nature, right? So if we've got the stress of digital in our, and that attention, I talk about this and we focus on this in men's retreats as well, is that getting out into nature, not having the phone ringing, not watching a TV, not hearing noise, but hearing birds, or sometimes hearing nothing, right? And when you get that, there is not one person that I've ever taken out, whether it's on a men's retreat, on a hike, where someone's gone, oh no, this is too quiet. No, this is too peaceful for me, right? Never, right? And I think from a school perspective, I think an education perspective is get the kids out into nature. But also back onto your point that you were making as well, is that, back in 2016, I thought it was funny, I said to the school, oh, we're taking the kids away for 2 months to Europe. And they said, oh, well, you've got a right to get approval from us. And I said, look, I'll write and advise you. But approval? I said, in 2 months, I can guarantee you, they will learn, going through 17 countries, they will learn more than they probably will in at least 1 year's of schooling. They're going to learn currency. They're going to learn different foods, different languages, different customs, different societies, right? I said, they will learn so much more than you're going to teach them, or any teacher is going to teach them in this year. And it was interesting because the head of the dean of that kind of cohort, actually, she said to me, she said, you're right, but she said, we've got these rules that you've got to, and I said, yeah, I get it. But I said, I'm not asking for approval. I'm letting you know, because
but that's the problem. It's ticking those boxes for the sake of ticking boxes. It kills me. Why are we not teaching the 3 most fundamental things? Yeah, we can teach them taxes. I know I see it online all the time about people teaching taxes and stuff like that in schools. Completely agree. We should definitely do this. But if these are the basic fundamentals in place, you forget about any learning taking place. Sleep, food, exercise. We can bring into nature. You know what? I'll tell you. I think I mentioned it on our podcast. I can't remember. I've definitely mentioned it on quite a lot of episodes. So my guests will probably get sick of me saying it. But I try and live my life through 4 C's. Am I perfect at them all the time? No. But this is my general one. First C, connection. Connection to, that could be many forms: family, friends, the world, nature. Connect. Just be, right? Connection is deep. If you look at our ancestors, we all lived in tribes. We still try and live in tribes. We do. Just looks different now to what it used to. Second, contribution. What you're doing with your podcast, what I'm doing with my podcast, trying to contribute. You could look at, say, teaching as that as well, was contribution. I was trying to contribute. It's, give, if I had $10 million, I'd like to think I would give 250 grand or 500 grand away. If I was a billionaire, would I give millions away? I'd like to think I would. I'm not in that situation to make that call. First, not yet. Yeah. Not yet. The power of yet. The third C, cope, sleep, mindfulness, and exercise. Really fundamentals. We do mindfulness now in schools, but again, I feel like it's ticking a box. No one understands the art of mindfulness. So let's teach them. Let's teach them about the brain. Let's teach them about sleep. Quick story before I get onto the 4th C. I was at a school last year sometime, and the principal knows I'm quite passionate about the brain, sleep, exercise, and the art of it, and human physiology, cellular level things. I talk about gene mutations and all that to them. They must think I'm crazy. And he did a survey. Now, the department didn't ask him to do it, because if it was a department thing, all the schools that I go to, and I don't just go to 1 or 2, I go to 40 a year at least. I would know that other schools are doing the sleep survey, so therefore it would have been a departmental thing. No, he decided to do a sleep survey. He got the data, and he said, Andy, don't forget I'm a CRT, I'm a casual teacher. They just get the CRTs to go and take a class. They don't, just go and do that class, just cover it. No, he said to me, I want you to take this class because I know what you're passionate about and I know your knowledge about it. He said, can you go through the data with the kids and talk about the impacts on the brain and the body and the next day and learning and the art of neuroplasticity? I was like, you want me to do it? He said, yeah, you're the man for the job. I went, sweet, absolutely. You don't have to pay me extra. I'll do it for free. And I loved the fact that he, one, did the survey. Two, he wanted me to talk about it. And the three, the kids were zoned in. I've never had that opportunity before, even as a contractor teacher. No one would have wanted. I've never seen it before in my life. And these kids, there was a few messing about. That's schools. Of course it happens. Kids get distracted and want to mess about. But 80% of the class was zoned in. And I saw them the next time, a few weeks later, and they said, Mr. White, I started to dim my lights, an hour before bed by 70%. I had a hot shower so I could lower my temperature, my body temperature by a degree before bed. I didn't touch the device. I said, how did you feel? He went, amazing. Now, he could have been just being nice to me, but just the fact that we had that follow-up discussion.
You made an impact.
And so going back to the 3 C's, sorry, and I will touch back on that 4th C, cook. So following on from connection, contribution, and cope, the 4th one would be cook. And that's where I changed my life was, again, I dip, and if we have moving, I'll have a bit of chocolate here, and, I'm not completely shut off from it all. But I went to Whole Foods, just looking at Whole Foods, no particular diet, just Whole Foods, meaning less ingredients. Broccoli, what ingredients is in a broccoli? Just broccoli. There's no other ingredients. So, if you look at all the other packaged things, there's at least, 8, 10, 12 ingredients that makes up a product. And as soon as I started just to acknowledge and just make aware, did I count everything? No. Did I look at everything? No. But I was just mindful of it. And I lose weight, my mental clarity, my personal growth, my ability to build something amazing in the podcast and the book and so on. I would never have done that before. Never.
Andy, I want to ask you, we've talked about teaching. Now, for me, I take my hats off to all the teachers that are listening now.
Me
it is
too.
a tough job.
I'm never going back.
Right?
Sorry.
Only casually. But they have got a tough job. I've got friends that are teachers. I've spoken to a lot of them. Some of them are no longer in the industry. We've got massive amounts, and I think there was some research done last year, massive amounts of teachers exiting the industry.
I know some stats for you.
You've got some stats, which would be great for you to share those. But I'd really like to talk to you about what are some of the, and please share your experience, because I know your experience, and listeners would love to hear it. But, some of the pressures that we probably don't think or don't know that teachers are under.
Cool. It does. How long did you have for the episode? I could talk about this for hours, to be honest. It's the pressures. I always remember this meme where it's not so much parent angled, but I just want to show the change of perspective from a certain angle. So back in the day, maybe I'll go with my 90s growing up in primary school and high school, and there was a picture of the cartoon, and the parents were sat on the same side as the teacher, and the child would be stood there, symboling that they were on the team for the child. Not that they were against the child, but they were on the same team for the child. That's how I'd like to hope it was meant anyway. And the modern day picture was the child. They were all sat level, by the way. And then the child, now the picture would show that the parent and the child stood over the teacher, sat down, looking down at them. And even today at school, I saw a parent shouting at an assistant. I won't name where in the world that is, but shouting at assistant and shouting at the teacher. The teacher, fairness, did shout back. I'm so glad she did. She said, you need to leave. And she was very firm about it. Otherwise, normally they would just sit back and go, oh, we're so sorry. No. She stood her ground. And I think it's so important that the teachers now take charge a little bit more, because that was some of the pressure there. And, you need to treat my child differently. My child's disabled, so therefore you have to treat them differently. But if I understand teachers do have to have awarenesses and in their mindsets might have to treat children different depending on their circumstances. But she's saying it in front of everybody, the child themselves. And as soon as a child knows they can be treated differently, that becomes their defining moment. They are defined by their disability. They are defined by their ADHD or whatever it may be. We shouldn't be defining these children in this way. That they should be defining themselves, and allowing a safe space to grow up in a classroom where they can feel similar and the same, or just safe within being them individual themselves, not being told I am ADHD. And how many children come up to me and say, I have ADHD, you have to treat me differently. What? No, I'm not going to treat you differently because the world's not going to treat you differently. I'm here for you. I'll support you. I'll support you in your ADHD. But the world's not going to treat you. I will honor you as an individual, and I'll be there and I'll care for you to the But that's some of the pressures. But really nitty gritty behind the scenes, the amount of tick boxes teachers have to look at and tick. The art of teaching is changing. Everything's becoming quite prescribed. A lot of scripts, which some teachers really, really like. But I think what they don't see, and this is just my opinion, and I'm sorry if people do disagree with me, but for me, the first thing has to go back to connection. Connection's being lost when we're reading from scripts. Now, I know they'll be able to come off the script eventually when they get more confident and they understand it, but I just see teachers struggling with it. And again, because I get to go to a lot of schools. So art of connection is being lost. The workload is increasing. PowerPoints upon PowerPoints. You should see the in-depth planners. And they get so wired by the words on a planner. The kids are sat there and the art's gone straight away. The energy's gone because these are just paperwork everywhere. It's not a corporate world. They're children. Teach them some basic stuff. Have fun with them and then go outside. Every 30 minutes, your cells inflame if you sit there for longer than 30 minutes. So stop worrying about a nice little, put a few words in a planner so the teacher can understand. And then but the impact of that is some teachers don't know, there's not enough guidance for them. Well, you know what? Then it's our job to help them and support them and allow them to be good, become good teachers and confident. That's what I want to do, is help these teachers become good teachers, not throw paperwork at them and go, right, you're on your own. Go and read the planner, read from the planner, you'll be fine. No, we need to bring connection back to the classroom. They have a lot of teams in schools where they're a part of a literacy program. They're part of other duties, meetings upon meetings twice a week. There's really strict laws on them. I now know teachers are not allowed to leave the premises at a certain time. Yet these teachers work till 11 o'clock at night. So if they're going to work till 11 o'clock at night, which I wouldn't agree with at all, but if they are going to do that, I can't tell a teacher to stop working by a certain time because that's up to them. But put faith in them. Put trust in them. Let them work from home. They're there at 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but you're telling them they cannot leave at 4:30. Some of the people, I know the office people will probably turn around and say, hold on a second, we have to be in the office 8 till 5, 9 till 5. But they do, other people get to sit in front of a computer, appear that they're working, but stop and do this for 2 minutes. You get to stop and have a mental break for 2 minutes. Let me tell you, a teacher never gets a second to switch off. Not one. Even if it's quiet, they have to be on.
Yep.
Children running around, children not doing the right thing. All these different variables come into the classroom, whether it's children misbehaving, bullying, being violent, being the sweetest kids. And when they do have a moment to be sweet, sit with them and embrace that. And then there's other ones being rude and obnoxious and you need to go and fill that in, but you've got all this paperwork to do. You know how much I couldn't wait to get rid of my kids just so I could get on with my paperwork. That's not why I got into teaching.
No.
Because I was thinking like that because I wanted to get home to my own family.
Yeah.
So I could have a life,
I think in life though, and I look at this, I was having this conversation with my sister the other day about scripts and processes and how you have to do things these days. And I liken it to, kids and youth coming into the workplace, right? Working at the Subways and the McDonald's and everything like that. I don't know if you've noticed this, but when you go in, they are so programmed that they've got to get the script and the process so right that they've lost the art of customer service and connection. Because their head is exploding with all the information and all the process that they have to go through, that they're actually forgetting the number one thing, which is service.
Yeah. But, and even before that, be yourself. Just be yourself. I keep saying to young teachers coming, just be yourself. Don't worry about that over there. Kids can feel it. It's all about the energy. If you're just yourself. I'm a CRT. Do you know what? CRTs get walked over. Oh, it's my time to dick about today because we've got a CRT. But you know what? I go in there, I be myself. And I actually, when I left the workforce, I thought CRT was just for 6 months for me. I've just completed my 3rd full year. My number one thing in life is connection. And I was worried I wouldn't get it. After 6 months, I was like, I have the best connection I ever have at like 10 different schools. Not just one, 10. I go in there, they might not see me for a week, 2, sometimes 3 if I've done a long stint at a particular school. Mr. White, IMA, how are you? Love it. Some come running up to me. I'm doing the right thing. I'm just doing the right thing. And I have no chronic stress. None. I walk in, do my thing at the highest possible level, and I walk out and I don't have to think about it. And it's not that I never wanted to think about it. Sometimes you go home and you think about stuff and you worry about stuff, and like you might have done when you were working in real estate. Of course, that goes with any territory of any job. But man, it got to a high level where I'm having the best time. I'm having the best time.
Being a CRT sounds like a grandparent, right? You can give the kids back and, you can spend small amounts of time with them and say, okay, there you go. I'm off back to my place.
Yeah. You know what? I keep saying to people, I'm the smartest teacher on the planet. I have no meetings. I get to teach I get to teach my own way. And if I don't follow the script, what are you going to do? You're going to fire me? No. I absolutely love it. But that aside, because I do go and put my heart and soul into it, they trust me, which empowers me even more. They trust me. Oh, I sometimes see teachers relieve. We knew we had you, so we're all good. And you know what? I blush, but secretly down there, I'm going, that was amazing. Just to hear that they don't see the impact on my mental, inside my head and inside my chest. Yep. But I have so many people going, yeah, Andy's coming in. Great. Just let him be. I love it. It makes me feel so good. Why would I want to go back and be judged?
Yeah. So let's talk about in your journey, and obviously we've spoken, I know some of it, obviously some of the pressures for teachers. You obviously, faced a lot of toxicity and a lot of, bullying from a workplace perspective. So I'd love you to share that story and why you went from full-time teaching into, and we're going to talk about the podcast and your book and everything like that. But what led you down that path and what that experience was like?
Moving to Australia, didn't know anybody. Made some good friends at university, but after university, you kind of separate you with that foundation, that group of lads and girls that we made friends with. I was a more mature student, 28, coming over here, but got a job. And when you go home to your partner, but you don't go home to a whole heap of friends. And what I had to understand probably was that they all had their normal lives to go home to, my colleagues. I probably tried to connect at a deep level with friends. Not that I wanted to go to dinner and drinks every single night with them or anything, but I wanted to make friends. Being raw from off the boat, I did. I was always the talkative soul, and it's a running joke. I even spoke to an old friend at the old school, and one of the girls turned up in the car park, and he said, "Oh, Andy White's on the phone," and she went, "Oh," and he said, "Oh, he's talking my ear off." So it's always been a running joke, and that I'm a talkative soul, and I could see the eyes rolling here and there, and people don't answer the phone because they know I'm going to be on the phone for like an hour. I'm a big boy. Just say you want to leave. It's okay. But I think looking back and reflecting, I probably tried quite hard to be a friend, and but my ability to connect with the kids, the community, the parents, the staff was always there. I can live strong knowing that I always tried with every aspect of that. I don't regret it, but I do believe I went through that because of that, if that makes sense. I think, yeah. So in my I get embarrassed when I talk about this, so I'll probably not look at you, but in the second year of my career, I won the National Teacher of the Year award in 2014, coming towards the end of it. And following that experience, I heard about this tall poppy syndrome. I don't know if the word syndrome goes at the end of it, but people was cutting me down quite a lot, making judgment calls, and a lot of it, some of it was from friends at first, having banter, and I totally laughed with it. It was hilarious, come on, teacher of the year, you can't make that mistake. Oh yeah, come on. And I get it, but there's always that line, and that line in terms of time didn't stop. It made me quite anxious, felt judged, and I felt I didn't really have a safe space to make a mistake or get things wrong. And
There's a bit of a poison chalice, yeah.
I can't confirm it, but through self-reflection and through being very open with everybody, people always come back to that. And so I do believe it. But I was never out there. I don't want to put it, if they ever listen to this episode, I learned so much from those girls that I worked with the first 2 years. I taught high school before coming to Australia, and all of a sudden I'm in prep. I did not belong in prep. I had 5-year-olds touch me all day long, and it was hard, goddamn work. I was asleep by 7 o'clock every night. Did I end up loving it? I did. I really did, and I enjoyed connecting with the parents. I'd be out there having a coffee with the parents in the morning. That's just the type of person I am. It's not sucking up to anybody. I was friends with the principal, and sometimes you'd hear, brown nose in the principal. Mate, this guy had problems and he felt lonely. I would have talked to anybody. Like, it wasn't because he's a leader. I don't care that he's the leader. I don't care that he or she is an aide. I will be your best mate. If we have a laugh and we bring positivity to the table, I'm there all day. And I think that brought. So there was somebody that I got along with in that second year. We always had a laugh in the staff room, and we got announced that we were in the same team the following year, 2015. I was excited. I was really excited. The year came, the year started, and it just wasn't how I envisioned it was going to be. I got the year level that I wanted. I wanted 5-6 because I was used to the older kids. I did my 2 years in prep, and the principal valued what I wanted, what I would have liked, I should say, and he rewarded me with that, and I loved it. I was so excited, but it was the worst year of my life. And of course, you experience illness in your life, and sometimes people die, and it's always sad. But these things do happen. But I never imagined myself being bullied. I never imagined being torn down every single day. But nobody could see it. It started off very small with emails and comments, and my partner actually saw it, and I said, no, because I like to see the best in everybody. It's just banter. It's just banter, having a laugh, bit of a joke here, back and forth. And it just gradually got worse. And, I've actually blocked quite a lot of it out now. So I can't really go into detail about the small things. And I know some people might say, well, it didn't happen. And I've wrote it down in a diary, so I could get the read out, but I don't think you want that. But just meetings were made up, comments, sly comments, but then lovely to me when other people are around. Going to people to support because nobody could see it. It didn't happen in their eyes. They didn't believe me. It was a simple case of, you're not getting along with this person. That's okay. Well, I was 32 at the time, and I'm okay with not getting along with people. There's been plenty of people in my life I've not got along with, but I'm not okay with the vicious, vindictive attacks that I'm getting every single day. And it kind of grew, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And to cut a long story short, after, 5-6 months, she pushed a paper in my chest, pushed mass paper in my chest. And my friend, who didn't believe me, who's still a good friend, kind of went into her own journey then, because she was shocked, completely shocked that this had happened. And she had to go through a bit of a thing herself, because of that. And it kind of got worse after that. We had a meeting, and some accusations were thrown. I'm probably not going to share that bit. It's in my book, but it did get worse. But the truth came out. The truth came out, and they no longer, because it turned out to be 2 bullies, but I didn't know about the last one until the very last moment. but she was involved with this other person, and I just didn't know. But they were never seen again. The truth came out, and they left the school, and one walked out on the spot, and the other one left at the end of the year, and they'd never been seen again in the community. They were still in the teaching world. And, I wish them all the best. I would love to sit down with them and ask them, was it something I did? Did I say something? Was it my actions that I'm just not aware of? If it was, we could have just spoken about it and knocked it off. But I'll never know. And that's okay. I wish them well, and I wish them no harm. And, like cliche as it sounds, I'm in a way, I'm kind of glad it happened, because I wouldn't maybe be here where I am. I wouldn't be sat in front of you. I wouldn't have written the book. I wouldn't have created a community where I get to share like yourself. And I'm very proud that I got through it. But I did, the following year, I thought I could move on because they were no longer on the premises. But my body and my mind went through a whole new journey of paranoia, anxiety, depression. And I still put the smile on every day. But I really wasn't myself. I would curl up on a ball every night. I would go to sleep at 2:00 in the morning, not wanting the next day. I'd be eating chocolate crisp, drinking bottles of Coke at night. Okay, I didn't turn to drugs and alcohol, but I wasn't suicidal in the sense that I was going to do it, but I had the thoughts, the what ifs. Can I escape this? Can I get through it? What if I do this? This will be easier. Never thought about how I would do it. It didn't get that far. And I didn't open up about that bit till years later. I kept that kind of to myself and inside the house, I suppose. So I went on a bit of a journey. I had my son not long afterwards. I thought that would fix me. It was like I had goals in between, and I thought they would fix me. Having a son, I thought that would fix me. And and really that was the sedation, right? My son's born, and you're happy and you're doing it all, and you appear happy because you've got the family, but deep down, I wasn't present. I just wasn't present with them. I wasn't the best dad. I'd play basketball and stuff like that, but I'd still find myself probably lying on the couch and lazy. But I think to the world, I maybe appeared as a really good dad. I don't know, but I know now I wasn't a good dad. And then we built the house, and I thought that would fix me. I bought a new car. I thought that would fix me. And I got my dream job. I was able to open a school with a few other people. And I always wanted to open a school. And I didn't have the department. It was a private school, so I didn't have the department to answer to. We could do it in our way. And it was, my friend messaged me and said, this school's all you, Andy. The things we mentioned before. If it wasn't sitting right, we could push that lesson to the side and come back to it. You can't do that in the state schools because you've got teams to be level with, and you've got that many kids and so on. It was just my little baby, and I was overwhelmed that they picked me. I just loved it, and I embraced it. It was bloody hard work, but that didn't go very well. No bullying, but it was a toxic environment to work in. I love the people that run it and opened it. No issues with them. But I was under pressure every day. I was spoken to like shit, pulled into the office, ridiculed. A person did see how I was spoken to, but there were other times that I was spoken to and no one was there because it was such a small team. There was no HR in place. There's a HR in place now. And I documented everything. I wrote everything down. I wrote all the quotes down. And again, I don't wish them any harm, but it was just a toxic environment. And
can I ask, Andy?
Yeah.
Going from the experience that you had in that, 5-6 months and that year that was a year from hell, do you think that you were in a different reality moving into that new role that was different to the actual reality? Do you think that you were a different person because of that experience, which affected that next environment?
So you mean the new school to build? You mean, was I in a different reality?
So you came from that old environment that was toxic and you went in. Do you think that because you weren't feeling yourself behind the kind of curtains, you were kind of not feeling that great, right? Do you think that you were a different person and you had a different reality moving into that next chapter, which actually affected that chapter?
Well, I felt so after the bullying in 2015. Remember, there's like a 5-6 year gap here, and in the
Okay. Yep.
2016 2017, I had a journey to go on, and then all those things, those goals, that sedation moments, those goals, they made me feel that I was okay, but deep
Dopamine
down,
hits.
I wasn't.
Mm.
So when I got the job, because this school valued connection, openness, honesty, I was open, I was honest, I was raw. They knew about my journey. That's actually what got me the job, because
Yep.
I was
Okay.
open about all those values. I cried in the interview. That, I believe that's what got me my job, because they wanted to see vulnerability, because it's all about deep emotional intelligence, this particular school. It was all raw and wanted all this to be touched. They wanted their guides and their teachers to be raw and in touch with their insides, their emotions. I believe my experience got me the job. 100%. They even told me that. You could, so going in was a different reality. No, I actually felt finally somebody loves me for who I am, values what I've been through, because they believe that what he's been through will be able to bring a better Andrew to the school. 100%. So no, I don't, because I actually show you. There's a video I could find, send to you, and you could see the dance that I did in my house when I got the call saying I got the job. Honestly, it was the best day. It was another one of the best days of my life, because I got to open a school. How many teachers on the planet get to open their own school?
Not many.
Not many. There's a few that get to open a state school, and then they, like everyone else, drilled and told what to do and how they want it. And we got to do this on ourselves. There's like 4 of us, and people were asking us questions, making us feel open to be vulnerable and safe and honest. And that changed over the months going afterwards. But man, I was so excited. I'd never been excited about a job in my entire life. And I still value that moment, and I still thank them for having the opportunity. Would I go back? No. I wouldn't go back. No, I don't believe in going back. I only want to go forwards. But I still love the feeling that I had. I'm still grateful for the journey. I know it was nothing personal, because that's just how that particular leader led amongst everybody. And that's fine. That's their leader. We're not the only one. You go to the corporate world, you go to the health industries. Sorry about that.
Sorry.
You have good leaders. You have leaders who just don't know how to lead, or are not inspired themselves to lead, or they're not trained, they're not given growth, they're not given inspiration themselves. That's okay. It was just another moment for us not to have the leader that I needed, I guess. So I wasn't living a different reality, but 6 weeks after leaving there, sepsis had set in my gallbladder. I thought I was having anxiety attacks. I don't probably believe I had anxiety attacks now. It was my gallbladder speaking to me. Sepsis had set in, and my partner got the phone call to say, prepare for the worst tonight. He might not be coming home. He could be in a coma in an intensive care unit in the next 30 minutes. And I didn't know that during that time. I was in hospital. They didn't tell me that. But yeah, it was a horrible experience. And a particular stone went into the bile duct, and apparently, not really done much research on this particular area, but apparently that is, there's only 3 surgeons in the state of Victoria that can operate on that particular part of the bile duct. The gallbladder removal is very common. It's weird. We say gallbladder removal is very common, but think about that. Break that down for a moment. No organs should be removed from the body. Do you know what I mean? I don't care how common it is. Shouldn't have to be removed. But obviously it had to be removed for my own safety. And the bile duct had either fixed itself, or it was never there in the first place. And we dealt with the sepsis. And luckily I survived the sepsis. And that's when I started to reflect on my life. And that's when the book was written. And that's when I started to study the brain, get to the root causes. And then the podcast came a little bit of time after that. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. If you could give some advice for people listening, if people are in a toxic culture, what advice would you give to them? What steps do you think they should take if they're in a toxic environment, if they're, being bullied, if they're, really heading to work each day with anxiety, with this deep dread of the day ahead because of what they're experiencing?
I would look at who you can trust and have like a little not a mentor, what would be the right, like a safety buddy to connect with, just to make them aware. But definitely document. The one thing I did do right was document everything, and it was tired. Trust me, in that moment, oh man, writing something every single time became. I didn't have the mental energy. I didn't have the physical energy. I didn't have the emotional tolerance to be able to do it. But oh my God, am I grateful now that I did do it, because that is really what saved me. And I don't necessarily mean save me from the moment, but allowed me to recover personally later on. So document everything for your own, because there's layers to that conversation too, right? Because I was sponsored to that. I was sponsored by the school. I couldn't leave. Some people turn around, why don't you just go and get a different job? Well, I'm from another country and I paid thousands of dollars to be at this school being sponsored. They didn't pay for me. I think some people thought I was they were paying for the sponsorship, but they wasn't. So I was living in fight and flight because I was handcuffed, really, in a sense. I could have convinced another school to give me the job, but then I would have had to pay more money and have to fill out all the paperwork. God, you should see the paperwork. So there's layers to your conversation, but generally speaking, I would seek a friend that you can trust, confide in them, be open. If you feel safe, if it's not a leader, I would have a confidential conversation with your leader, meaning if it's a colleague. But if it's a leader, like mine was, I did bypass them a couple of times, but I had no proof because these people were gaslighting me. I had no proof whatsoever until it was physically done in front of me. So I'm going off track here. So your advice, confide in a friend, journal everything, document everything, but connect. But when you go home, man, you've got to try and connect. Do some basic stuff to prepare yourself. Get up, go for a walk in the morning, stand strong, cold shower, walk with the sunlight, walk your dog, do some breath work. Even if it's in the car, do some breath work before you enter. I did that in my last toxic environment. I would sit in the car and I'd do some breathing to try and mentally prepare myself so I wouldn't escalate, so I wouldn't blow up, so I wouldn't react. It was so easy to go. It's so easy to go down that road. So yeah, breath work, bit of exercise, even just lifting a little light weights in the morning, just to train your brain that you've got a little bit of power in yourself. You know what I mean? A little bit of strength, because you can transfer that physical strength into your emotional strength. And more often than not, you just don't see it straight away. Yeah. So really try and have your eyes open and ask yourself, does it sit right? I think you have to trust your gut a little bit more. If it doesn't sit right, just try and make notes. Try and make notes on that. And that's what I did, and that's really what was the best thing for me. But I'm not going to lie, I did struggle with the bullying. It was really one of the hardest things I'd ever been through, if I'm honest. And I've told people, I've had people even in my family say, "Man up," that was really hard to hear. I hope that answers your head. I don't feel like I've given you enough on advice, if I'm honest, but.
Before we get back into the episode, from time to time you might have a burning question, a guest recommendation, a comment or some feedback, which I always appreciate. If so, I'd love to continue the conversation after this episode, so let's connect. I'm easy to find, but the best place to engage and connect is on Instagram, @TheSteveHodgson. But that's enough from me. Let's get back into the episode. No, I think that's good points. I think, like it's a bit of a safety plan, having that contact and that person that you can confide in.
Yeah.
And also if you can get out of the environment, get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, again, I suppose that didn't enter my advice because I knew that wasn't an option for me. And I'd never been bullied where I lived in England. So I think if I try and imagine myself, if that had happened, well, I can imagine it happened now, right? I left and went into a casual teaching role. Not that was bullying, but it was just toxic, so I could get out. I had that freedom and it was quite easy. I'm not going to lie, to leave, it was quite easy. And
I love
had
the
a
quote
mortgage.
that says, if you don't like where you are, you're not a tree, you can move.
Yes, right. And some people will turn around and say, well, I've got a mortgage. And I have a mortgage and kids. I've dropped 40K a year, but I'm the happiest I've ever been now. I really, really am.
Yeah. Yeah. So your experience, your journey, even right back from basketball into teaching, has really led you through those experiences, through your journey. A key word there that I love, and I know you use it really well, is gratitude.
Yeah.
Gratitude for your journey. Don't
Mm.
don't think back and dwell on the things. Actually, look for the gratitude, because each of those things are pieces of the puzzle that have put you, or kind of made you the masterpiece you are today, right? And you'll continue to keep putting pieces together as we move on. And as I say, I probably say in every episode is, we're all a work in progress until the day we die.
100%. And on that point, I did dwell for a very long time. Maybe not dwell, but I vented on the dog park to friends, and I probably repeated it a million times to the same people, and they're probably very sick of me. And I think what I learned from that was venting was powerful for me in the sense that it released the undesired emotions daily. But once you've had that sleep and you reset and you're back, you need to vent again. Those emotions really do come back every day. Well, they did for me anyways. So venting's powerful. But for me, the crisis needed to happen. The bullying wasn't even the crisis, even though it was traumatic. It was the near-death experience. That was the crisis point where I knew I had to make change. And that's when I was finally able to turn that pain into purpose and the grief into growth. And, that was really the change. Yeah. So that was the defining moment for me,
Yep. So you co-authored a book. You've got your own podcast, Leading Our Own Way. Talk to me about, what does it mean to lead your own way?
Oh, God, I always ask people that question. What does it mean to me to lead my... Say that again. I need you to reword that. Say that again, sorry, in the same way.
So obviously I know,
Mm.
as I've been on your podcast, you asked me,
I did. And
what
now
does
I'm on the spot.
leading your own way mean?
Yeah.
What is it for you? And I'm going to throw that question back to you, because I'd love to know.
Yeah, I think leading our own way is titled that because we can't all lead the same way. Our paths are all completely different. We all look at the world in a very different way, even though we see the same thing. We're looking at the same landscape. I always say that to the kids in class. We can look outside, we all see the same thing, but we all look at it completely differently because we all feel it differently. We all smell it differently. We all sense it differently. And I think it's just taking pieces of the world and putting it into your own practice. And I think that's really the ethos behind the podcast, is to be able, so the viewers can take people of the guests like yourself and all the other people, hundreds, I've not done hundreds yet, all the other guests that I've done. And I really want the viewers to take, and it's my own little personal diary. I'm taking pieces of you all and putting it into my own little Riverside link lock in my studio on my Mac. And I just get to implement them. How lucky am I that I get to take pieces of you all and put it into my life? And leading my own.
It's our own therapy, Andy.
It really is. But I really want the viewers to feel that too, and see the power in that. Whether it's journaling, whether it's gratitude, whether it's meditation, whether it's changing your food or looking at cellular level stuff. We can have these rich conversations, and I think that's the ethos behind leading our own way. And it's a journey, like you mentioned. That's why I finished with future plans. I don't want people to see this as the end point. We don't stop until we die. And if people can see the trajectory of people's lives, they can realize this is not the end. It's only keep going forward. So, we all have steps, we all have goals, we all have milestones. And I think leading our own way is a powerful way to say it, because we all lead in our own way.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Did you answer my question?
I think I did. Did I not?
How do you lead? How do you lead your own way?
I get up every morning with a positive mindset. It's actually quite a tough question, isn't it? Why do I
love it?
Question?
You ask all your guests this question. You ask me this question. And then it's like, bro, I'm going to throw it back to Andy.
Well, I'll tell you how I lead my own way. I have to rethink about it a couple of times. You might have to do a few edits here, I guess. I lead my own way by providing a safe space for other people to share their own journeys. I think that's the easiest way for me to say how I lead my own way, and how I continue to want to lead my own way is that I want to go and I'm not doing this yet. This is a current state. Because part of my question is explaining, getting the viewers to explain how they're leading their own way now. How outside of teaching, because I wish I could quit it so I could do this more full time. But how I'm leading my own way is meeting amazing people and sharing, allowing them a safe space to share their own journey so we can help hopefully millions of people. That's how I'd like to think I'm leading my own way now. To lead my own way in the future is I want to be able to create mental health talks so I can go into workplaces to inspire the leaders that are supposed to inspire the people that they're supposed to inspire. That means teaching them how to be present, how to work on themselves on a daily basis. And then we'll go into the nitty-gritty things of the individuals that they're supposed to work with. Not philosophies, understanding character, personality, strengths, weaknesses, and how to meet those needs of those individuals, not drain it out of them.
Yeah, perfect. And of all the guests that and I know you've had some amazing guests, you've really kind of brought some great insights and really extracted some great stories. But, if you could kind of think about one or two of the stories or, insights that have really had the most impact on you, what comes to mind?
It's a tough one.
Now, I'm asking you this question because people say to me, "Oh, who's been your favorite guest?" Or who, and it's like kind of asking who your favorite child is, right?
It is.
And you and I, we on both our podcasts, we have a different theme and a different guest and a different kind of subject every episode, right? And it's hard because it's like, well, you could kind of slot it into different themes and then you could kind of pick, but like there's power in each one, right? But I'd love you to let me know, like, just a moment you sat there and went, shit, that was amazing.
Oh, that is a good. And I thought it's weird because it's not a strange question to me because I've asked that question myself a lot. One of the most powerful. I don't have a favorite, like you say. I can't choose that. I just don't. I can't do it. But I've interviewed professional basketball players and professional sports stars who have suffered with anxiety, suicidal thoughts, or found people that have ended their life through suicide. I've interviewed neurologists, neuroscientists, the bucket list guy, people who've played with Steph Curry, the most famous basketball player on the planet. But the one that pulled on my heart was when a close friend of mine said to me, there's no ranking on trauma. Now, behind that, I cried. We cried on this episode together. And then if he hears it, and I think if he hears it, if he listens to this, he'll know. So he was a friend of mine. We competed in the basketball leagues here together against each other many, many years ago. He's from England as well. He won't mind me saying it. It's Paul Eldickham. He used to play professional basketball in Newcastle in the UK, over here in Australia. And he found his partner. Actually, I don't want to say that yet. I went to his place. He moved quite close to me, and I didn't know. We didn't know, and we got in contact, and he was living down the road. So I went to his place for a couple of drinks to catch up, and me being me, vented about my journey. He's just sat. He just listened. He didn't do anything else. Obviously, said a few words, probably with some wisdom at some point. A week goes by or 2 weeks goes by, and obviously that night felt good, by the way, and vented, and he heard me, and it was me probably just going away going, oh God, I've just vented again. He probably got bored after an hour. I'm not going around there again. I won't get invited. But we ended up doing it again. Fuck, he shared his story. And I sank. He found his partner to suicide. And I felt, well, if I had gone through what you'd gone through, I probably wouldn't have thought my bullying was that bad. Do you know what I mean? I felt, but then I had him sat there in my mind, just listening to me. He didn't turn around and say, yeah, I've had a tough time too. None of that. Because he could have turned around and said, I've had a tough time and gone into that journey on that same night with me, but he didn't. He let me have my moment of venting, my moment of opening up to him. Fuck, that brought us close. That brought us real close. And oh God, I'm going to get upset about it. But he, when he shared his journey, I sat there and I just heard him. I was doing it to him. I was hearing him, but I was also sat there thinking, fuck, I was slightly embarrassed. Like, you've been through this, and I was going on about mine that last week to you. And I said this to him, and then he said those unbelievable words. But Andy, there's no ranking on trauma. So I think that's the best advice I can give going forward to anybody. Anybody.
Yeah. No ranking on trauma. That's deep.
Oh man, I can't. That's the only advice I can think. If I'm ever going to give advice and professional advice, I'll just turn and say, no ranking on trauma, guys. It's okay what you feel. It is, me and you could have the same experience as a car crash or whatever it may be. You might walk out headstrong and I could be the most depressed person. Everyone just looks at things and feels things differently, So that was the powerful moment for one of my guests. Yeah. There was many more as well, may I add. But that was one that brought two people very close together.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's wow. Yeah. I can feel that.
Oh, I can now. I'm talking about it. Yeah. I'm getting all sweaty.
Yeah. No, I appreciate, grateful for that kind of sharing on that element as well. And it's certainly an important point. And we're all, there's no, that, what was it again?
No ranking on trauma.
There's no ranking on trauma. And anyone listening to this, we all go through different levels of trauma.
Yeah.
There's no ranking.
There's just no ranking on it. Yeah.
That is just a beautiful way to put it.
Oh, it'll stay with me forever.
Yeah. You've co-authored a book as well around leading with purpose. What are some of your advice on how do people lead with purpose?
I think it goes back to really understanding yourself at a deep level. Don't go in with an agenda. Don't go in with it's important to have a vision. It's important to, but before having a vision, I think it's important to understand yourself of what your individual purpose is, what the long-term goal is that you want. Do you want results first, or do you want to connect with people first? If you want the results, then you'll carry on like every other leader. But I think if you think of the long mindset, the infinite mindset, not the finite mindset, got that from Simon Sinek. But I think if you self-reflect, work on yourself, I think that's really where you begin at the core of being able to lead with purpose yourself. That's really where we look at. That's where we begin. And in the book, what we do is we start with chapter 1, where it was close to Mike and myself. We shared stories of people being bullied in the workplace, of poor leadership, whether it was bullying or poor leadership examples. So we reached out to people in the world. We did a bit of a market survey type thing, and people submitted their journey, and we published them in chapter 1. And then we threaded through some of the personal development strategies through to those journeys, 3 or 4 of them, or 5 or 6 of them. We didn't do all 40 stories. Some might just take that as a good read and an interesting journey, and they might not need anything more than that. Chapter 2 is the personal development chapter. Again, we threaded some of the strategies directly to the scenarios, or just personal development strategies as a whole. My co-author is an NLP coach, neural linguistics. I can't even say it. Coach, so he does quite deep into that. And I was at the beginning of my learning journey when it came to the brain and sleep and nutrition and stuff like that at the time. But we do bring all of those aspects into it. And then the 3rd chapter around the leadership side, I think that's where you really need to begin, is just going back to yourself. And it sounds so simple, but I do genuinely, truly believe leading with purpose, understanding yourself at a really deep level, and how you set yourself up in the morning before going to work. And it doesn't mean shutting off all. People say leave your problems at home. It's not about leaving your problems at home. It's about understanding how to manage your problems and how to manage your frustrations, how to manage your undesired emotions. There's no negative and positive emotions. They're all there for a reason. They're all survival emotions. There's what got us through the last 3 million years, or however million years the human physiology has been around. So I feel like we've lost the art of understanding ourselves at a deep level. We've got to get back to basics. When you get the basics in tune, you'll go to work. Because I see some leaders with the same stresses as the next leader, but they're able to be present. They don't have their phone out in a meeting. They're focused on you. And even if you're not interested, just make them feel it. They'll walk out feeling empowered and you've done your job. You might, it's not a waste of time to sit with somebody for 5 minutes longer if they feel heard and feel safe and feel valued. That's the art of connection, is feeling seen, heard and valued. But there's layers to it before that. That leads to hope. As one of my guests said, it's understanding expression, recognition and understanding of each individual. Just knowing their name. Just know their name. Every person that you come across in your workplace, know their name. Go and have a coffee with them. That's leading with purpose at the root.
So there's two things that we all struggle with: self-doubt and imposter syndrome. And that really are kind of roadblocks to leading with purpose. What would be some advice that you've kind of worked through that people could put in place, or some mindset shifts to get rid of the self-doubt and work through the imposter syndrome so that they can lead with purpose?
That's a good one. I never really had self-doubt until...
Oh, well, you're from Manchester. Most people in Manchester don't have self-doubt,
Look, you know what? I've always been a very confident person, but even when I did have self-doubt, you would never have known I had self-doubt.
Yeah. You mastered it.
I did, but I self-doubt came my way when I was stripped of all confidence, and I won an award to represent apparently how good I was. Being a basketball player, of what I've done and the community that I've built. I've been a financial advisor. I've traveled the world. I did all the things that should build confidence, that should give you life experience, right? That should help you understand not only others, but yourself at a deep level. Moving across the world isn't something small. I left my friends, my family in the UK and moved to Australia with my partner, determined to build my career, right? As a teacher. I went all in. I dived in so badly, and I fought for everything. When that self-doubt crept in, I masked it for a very long time. Part of your question was, how did I chip away at it? Is that what you said?
Well, what would you recommend for people? How do they make a mindset shift to push through that self-doubt and that, the big cloud, the imposter syndrome? Because to lead with purpose, you've really got to step into your own. You've got to, as you say, you've got to find you. What do you stand for? What do you want to stand for? And how do you want to lead, right? And then how do you want to lead? That is your purpose. That is your passion. That is internal passion. But a lot of the time we fit into people's expectations and what society thinks we should do, or what we should say, or how we should be, or how we should act, right? But how do people, what would be some advice you would give, or some recommendations how people could shift their mindset to overcome self-doubt and also, deal with imposter syndrome?
I struggle with imposter syndrome.
In what way?
I did feel like an imposter for a while. The more I got into it, I don't know. I struggle. I don't know how to define imposter syndrome. I've heard that many different versions of it. I get confused by the whole thing now about imposter syndrome. When I sit around tables with people, there are times I sit there and go, I don't belong here. But I don't feel like you shouldn't feel an imposter, because there's many, many reasons why I was sat at that table. It was self-doubt that took over when I was stripped of everything. Where there's layers to that conversation. For me, self-doubt changed when I was able to survive something so severe. And when I saw the power that I'd survived in something that was so deep, that's when I went home and really thought about what do I want out of life. So I started to write things down as like a vision board. I wrote all down my character traits, what I've always loved and never been swayed from. And that for me is conversation, connection, people, energy. And I think that's where the podcast lives, because I don't feel judged when I speak, when I talk about the things I've been studying. And that's how my mindset shifted, because then I started to get all these people come to me. Some were negative, some were positive. But whereas back in the day when I hadn't worked on myself at a cellular level, I would have lost sleep at the thought of somebody saying those things or me upsetting somebody. But now I'm so deep in understanding myself. If I know my intentions are completely authentic and real, I'm reassured that I can't help how everybody else feels. That to me is the opposite of self-doubt. Does that make sense?
Yep. Well, and I think, part of that is really pushing through the discomfort in life brings you to comfort, right? And I think when you have a doubt in your mind that you can do something, and I'll give you an example. One of my biggest fears was, and I shared it on the episode on your podcast, was jumping out of a plane, right? It was my
Yes.
biggest fear. Once I achieved that, pushed through that doubt, everything under that kind of just fell away. Like, someone said to me the other day, "Oh, are you going to do this or are you going to do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." "Oh, doesn't that scare you?" I went, the biggest thing that scared me, I've done. So everything under that. And I think from an imposter syndrome and a self-doubt perspective is every person that is, because we say imposter syndrome, right? So people will be like, "Oh, you're trying to be Tony Robbins, or you're trying to be Mel Robbins, or you're trying to be all these different people," right? They all started, and some of them still have the imposter syndrome. I can
100%.
guarantee you, I've spoken to some of the people out there that you would think are the most confident, aligned, and just complete experts in their industry. They still are in awe of other people. They are still questioning sometimes, "Oh, can I speak on that topic, or can I share on that because there's someone that is better off or better positioned or better placed to actually speak on that?" They still go through imposter syndrome. But I think everyone that is sitting at a table, and you said you're sitting in a room and you're like, I probably shouldn't be here, right? But everyone sitting at that table, some of them would still be having those same emotions that you're having, right? Thinking that about other people in the room, but also as well, no one gets to a high end of being an expert or going through what they do without first being an imposter.
Yeah. Maybe it's just a stepping stone to get to, that you have to go through to get to where you need to get to, maybe. You just brought an internal memory back from the podcast when you said about jumping out of the plane. Before my trauma, let's call it, I'd done all of these. I'd done all like the jumping out the planes, traveling the world, moving to the side of all, like I mentioned before, all these things that should give you the most confidence. And then somebody came into my life and stripped it. And I wouldn't even say I let them, but somehow they dug away small chips. I still struggle with that bit there. How do you stop that? I'm learning still to a certain point to put boundaries up. Does that connect with self-doubt? Does self-doubt prevent you from putting a boundary up? Now I don't have the self-doubt. Do I put boundaries up firmly and safely? I think so. But I'm not also in the same position as I was once, meaning working in a school. Because the casual teacher, I have that safety net. I can fuck off out of there and I'm safe. And I think the pivotal point for me, I can see that. So you also hit me again with when you jumped out of the plane, that changed everything for you. Shall I tell you the pivotal part for me where it changed everything after the crisis of the near-death experience? I was reading an article on the Daily Mail. I know it's not the best newspaper in the world, but there was a guy who'd suffered with anxiety for 20 years to a point where it crippled him and he wouldn't go outside of his house. And he brought up the subject of cold showers. This was like at the beginning, way at the beginning, before cold showers, cold water exposure became popular, let's say. And it was just after when everyone did that cold water plunge, to raise money. Do you remember that? What was that called? The cold water plunge?
Ice bath.
No, you throw
ice bucket.
Ice bucket challenge. That's right. So I did all of
for,
that. And everyone,
MND, yeah?
That's right. And it was
motor neuron disease,
which
is absolutely awful.
Absolutely. But we raised money doing it in that way. And what a great idea. However, you saw millions of videos going, and everyone, you just praise them. Like, wow, they put themselves through it. So I did it. And then however years later, because it was years later, I read this article about this guy suffering. And he went through the cellular steps of having cold showers and basically putting that trauma, because going back to what you said, we've become so comfortable with being comfortable. We no longer can be uncomfortable. Heating, air conditioning. We can get food wherever we want, whenever we want, and so on. We could be here for hours talking about that, but I think you see what I mean. And he said, look, I put water on my skin, cold, freezing cold water, just from the shower, not even cold plunges, and it was small steps to lead him to bigger things. And that cold water was hitting his skin and it was traumatic, but he breathed through it. He got the oxygen to the brain. It stressed. It's called homeostasis, which you intermittently put stress on the body. Good stress, eustress, acute stress, not chronic stress. And he built his cellular level to withstand this pressure on the skin. He'd get out of the shower and he felt like he was ready to fight the day. That day, he was able to walk down to his front garden gate, then go back in. A week later, he was able to walk halfway down the street. I think you can see where I'm going with it.
It's exposure therapy.
Right, yeah. I did the same thing. 5 seconds, 10 seconds at the end of a warm shower turned to cold. I would lose sleep if I thought I'd upset somebody. If I'd got a text message that I didn't agree with, or I'd upset, or they've hurt me, I would lose sleep. I'd go and eat chocolate, sugar, which obviously brings in loads of other impacts. But as soon as I started doing that, I just built up. I am now obsessed and believe, because even just this summer was an experiment. I didn't do much cold water exposure because the water outside is pretty warm because we've been having 40-degree days, and I don't have a refrigerated one yet. I'm saving up to get a refrigerated one because I can keep it at like 3 degrees all year round. And it's a good experiment. I'm kind of glad I've done it, but my mental clarity wasn't quite the same. So in a way, I'm looking forward to the cold weather coming back so I can have really, really cold water, right?
Yep.
I'm not buying thousands of pieces
of cold
shower.
A cold shower in Australia, for anyone listening, if you're back in the UK or Europe, that's a cold shower back there is definitely different to a cold shower in Australia, even in winter.
Yeah, and when I went home to the UK, I did a cold shower in England, and I felt it, and it was great. I'm not gonna lie, I am now obsessed. But I get the water outside in my cold spa to about 5 degrees, and anything lower than 15 is kind of really what you need to put that stress on the cells. I don't really need to go much colder than 3. Some people do it in -2. I don't think there's much scientific evidence to suggest colder the better. As long as you have it between the 3 and the 15 mark and between 30 seconds to 3 minutes, you get what you need out of it. I did train my body to go to 15 minutes in 8 degrees, but after I did more research, I didn't need that. So I go back on it and just sit there for 2 minutes. I do my breath work. And honestly, I swear to God, I know it sounds so simple. In my mind, it's simple. When I give advice to everybody else, they go, Andy, I'm not doing that. Are you crazy? But honestly, if you just do it, I promise you, I really do genuinely feel it will make the difference to your life. And then you can incorporate other things, good eating habits, good sleep patterns. You honestly feel the most worthy person. I do genuinely believe that's really what conquered my self-doubt, because I did self-doubt. I would go to the bathroom 8 times a day to take my shirt off to dry the sweat, and it was winter. That was my anxiety coming out. That was my anxiety coming out. And that's what I did. That breath work, that cold water stopped any sweating on any shirt. And you get paranoid, don't you, of sweat marks on the shirt. This would be a typical shirt that I would sweat in. And I got so nervous and anxious more and more and more because I thought people could see it. And I worked on it, man. And I just feel like I conquered it.
some great tips there for listeners
No, I
in
hope so.
regards to a self-care perspective, and really kind of, I think the power is working out what works for you, right? Like
Absolutely.
cold showers might not work for you,
Yeah.
right? But what does? Is it, obviously exercise is a key thing. I cold showers morning and night for me. I don't have hot showers anymore. People will be sitting there going, that's crazy. But it's just for me, cold showers is, I just love it. How it makes me feel is amazing, right?
Oh, yeah,
But it
I
is,
agree.
as you say, your nutrition, what you're putting into your body, and actually listening to your body around how do you feel after certain foods that you eat? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel energetic? Or do you not?
Yeah.
And for different people, it will mean different things and it will react differently, right? Because we're all unique, wonderful miracles of human beings, right? But we're all different. We're all unique. And you've got to to superpower yourself, you've got to work out what what are the elements, what are the pieces of the puzzle that make you up, because they're different for me.
Mm.
They're different for you, Andy. They're different for everyone in the world. But
Absolutely.
you've got to work out what are those elements that are going to actually supercharge your machine to make sure that you can go out there. Because if you can feel good, look good, and you feel yourself, right, you can be more confident. You can encounter challenges. You can get over obstacles. You can achieve so much more. You can live with more purpose. You can lead with more purpose. You can be the person that you were born to be.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's funny. I was looking around then. I was looking for this. I've not started this book yet, but it's funny that we brought this up. Honestly,
Yep.
food affects our moods. I'm only like 2 pages in. I've only just started. As you can see, all my other books have stickers, so you can see I've not read anything. I bought this last weekend, and I can't wait to get stuck into it.
Yep.
But
I look forward to the review.
oh, mate, absolutely. It's incredible. I love all these type of things. But you're right. It's funny. I said that I said before, like, just try it, and people say it's not for me. When I say those people, I wanted to reiterate, those people who are saying it's not for me, they've not tried it yet. That's what annoys me. And it annoys me because I care, by the way. If you just try it, you won't fall in love with the cold water. You'll fall in love with how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. You'll fall in
Yep.
love with the challenge that you've conquered it, how good you feel after it. And you just feel so empowered. And honestly, I genuinely believe that, along with all the other mixtures of ingredients that we just said with food and sleep and so on, and water and sunlight and connection, that really what removes the self-doubt. I think if we just go back to basics, you start to feel good about yourself. It's not about removing the self-doubt. It's about feeling good about yourself.
Yeah. And if you look at some of the statistics, and I did a Wim Hof weekend, and some of the statistics, and I'm going to get this wrong, and people can look it up, but I think they did a study around ice baths and cold plunging and cocaine, right?
Oh,
And
yeah. Dopamine.
you've probably seen some of this stuff, right? And it had the cold plunge and the ice bath actually had a higher reaction to how that person felt than cocaine.
Oh, right. I thought you were going to bring dopamine into it, but yeah.
No, well, this is the whole thing. All these different elements were far more enhanced by the ice bath or the cold plunge than it was of cocaine. I will look up the study. I probably got the statistics wrong, but it was an amazing kind of piece of research that they shared, and we kind of looked into, and I was like, wow. And that really just showed how natural things that we can do can actually supercharge ourselves.
Well, again, right? When did we invent hot showers and hot baths? Let's just be safe. 150 years? It probably wasn't even that. It's probably far less. But let's go with 150 years. Humans have been around. The human physiology, the appearance of how we look, maybe not today, but the structure, it's been around for around, well, I've read in my literature, 3-4 million years or so. People think it's like a couple of 100,000 years. It's actually a lot longer, and we're going real back to, apes and gorillas, and even probably around that time. But we've really only started to manipulate things in the last since we invented the farms 9,000 years ago, we started to farm 9,000 years ago. We invented the chair 4,000 years ago. That caused a lot of problems, spinal issues, breathing issues, and so on.
Yep.
Our structural bodies, skeletons, teeth, the way we drink. There's from the book Breathe by James Nestor. He says in that book that there's looked at ancient skulls, and ancient means over 1,000 years. There's not one bent tooth in a skull that they found, not one bent tooth. And why? Because they're not using anything fake to manipulate. The breathways haven't changed, the structure hasn't changed, but it's been changed since, quite heavily, since the things we've created. We started to eat meat. Cows have been on the planet, I think, 700,000 years. We started to eat it around 480,000 years. And then around 250,000 years, we started to heat it because we accidentally discovered fire. But we never had fire before that. Well, we came down from the plants and started to pull the plants from the ground. And that's how the thumb was developed. And so we got more calories. So our brains got bigger. We never had a prefrontal cortex. We always just had the limbic system, the emotional side of the brain. Then we became logical, regulation. And then we started to heat the meat, which gave us even more calories. So the nose came out, the chin went in. And if you look at gorillas, it's the opposite. And all these issues started to happen. Breathing issues, chronic diseases, inflammation. And it all co-aligns with the time frame as since we've been started to change our food, the structure of food, the way we've invented society. So we mess up with our circadian rhythms with duties at night, jobs during the night. People are not sleeping anymore. Sleep apnea. To me, it makes sense. It seems pretty logical.
We could do a whole episode just on that.
We really, really could. And I think to sum it all that up, we just need to go right back to the core basic. Do you believe there was any self-doubt in people 1,000 years ago? I don't think there was. I think there were warriors. Do you think a warrior ever backed down and said they didn't want to fight? They just fought, but just one died. There was no self-doubt. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an expert. I struggle. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about, and the interesting thing is just on that thing as well is, I talk about, I was having a conversation with someone. We're talking in the last few years around stress and anxiety. And, if we go back 20 or 30 years, you didn't hear about stress and anxiety.
Not in the same way.
No, not in the same way. People would get stressed, right? But now you talk to people and it's like, oh, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, right? And like you were saying early on in the conversation, and I've kind of worked this out as well, is that when I was going through my journey, people would say to me, oh, you're not working. And I'd like, oh no, I've gone through burnout, I've got depression, anxiety, and fatigue, right? They were labels that I was actually putting on myself, right? So if you're going to say to yourself, I'm stressed, guess what?
You're stressed.
You're going to be stressed. Or I'm anxious. You're going to have anxiety, right? So you've got to shift those labels that you're actually putting onto yourself, because what you're doing is you're just kind of attaching that to who you are. You're attaching that to your identity. You've got to change the dialogue, change the way you talk about yourself, and change how you describe yourself or what's happening to you, and be more positive than negative when you're talking about that.
That's actually deeper. That's actually probably the furthest point forward where you should probably start with. The advice that I gave before regarding self-doubt exists for sure, and I still believe in it. But you're right, it's neuroplasticity. What you're talking about there is neuroplasticity, rewiring the brain to train the brain in the mindset that you desire, because if you do, you'll start to go in that direction. Whereas if you say, it's like when people go on the addiction courses, I am an addict, I am an addict, keep repeating it. Well, then you're going to be an addict. You are training your brain to think that you're an addict. Start to actually, if I could go on one of those courses, I'd rewire it and say, I want you to say, I'm no longer an addict. That doesn't mean go and pick up a drink. That's saying, I'm not an addict. I am not an addict. But I think, I might be wrong, but I'm sure that's what they do. Anxiety, you brought up anxiety. I love sharing this. If you go on YouTube and watch a deer being attacked by a lion or a tiger in the wild, whatever attacks a deer in the wild, I forget. But you can go and watch it on YouTube, and you can see when the deer gets attacked and it's got its young there, whether they all survive or not, that mother of that deer, of in that little tribe it's got, I don't know what the correct name is for a deer and its family, but that herd or whatever, they survived attack. Fear sets in. Fear is what's allowed them to survive. Fear is a survival emotion. Very crucial. Let's say the tiger disappears and goes in the other direction. That deer doesn't have time to be anxious. That deer is finding food and shelter and safety for its young immediately. It doesn't have time to be anxious. It needs to continue to live. More often than not, those videos actually display the deers eating food immediately. They've moved on and they're eating food. Now, it converts that to a human. If it goes through trauma, I'm not disputing that's what they shouldn't feel this, but if you watch a human and go through some trauma, they've got a whole journey to go through. And I do believe that's because of the things that we've created in society. Our bodies and minds have to go through a really long process and a really long journey. And that's because we have so many more thoughts going through our brain. I think we average something like 80,000 thoughts in a day. A deer probably has 1,000. It doesn't really have that much to think about. So it's actually probably in a much safer space mentally.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I.
No, there's definitely, we've dug in some great topics there. I wanted to ask you, what's your definition of success? What does success mean to you?
Happiness.
And what's happiness?
Happiness is.
Describe it to me. Describe how it looks and feels to you.
Yeah. I think people think happiness is an emotion. For me, I have to say I don't think it is an emotion. I can feel enjoyment. I can feel joy and love and all of those things that could be described as happy. Anxiety isn't a survival emotion. It's a byproduct of fear. I think it's been created again with the things that we've created as a society over the thousands, even 100,000 years possibly. But happiness for me, I try and look at it as three things. Understanding your meaning. Having meaning, your why, as some people like to say it now, but meaning, purpose, or your why. Satisfaction, being satisfied when something is finished. Everything comes to an end. Your basketball game on a Monday night finishes. The clock buzzes, you're finished. Your sleep finishes. When you don't want to get up in the morning, are you happy? No, you're sad. Or you're depressed. Or you don't know why. When you don't want to get out of bed. When you get up out of bed, how strong, ready to go? Are you sad? I wouldn't say so. I think you're happy. And the last one is enjoyment. So I've done it in the wrong order. I think satisfaction should come last, sorry. But enjoyment, I'm enjoying that basketball game whilst I'm playing it. I'm enjoying the family time, being present with my children when I'm going through it. And when it finishes, because dinner's finished or it's bedtime, I'm satisfied for the day. That's where your gratitude comes into play. But that's a byproduct of all of these three things. So if you want to sum up happiness, I'd be going with understand your purpose and your why, your meaning. Excitement, enjoyment, enjoy the moments, and then be satisfied. And then start it all over again the next day.
Cool. I've never heard it that way.
Yeah.
I've never heard it that way, and that's an awesome way to look at it.
Yeah. Long-term, it's a long-term state. If you were to say something that would make me sad right now, I'm happy in life, right? I'm really happy in life. But you could say something that would hurt me right now. It'll make me sad. Yes. It could even make me angry or frustrated. But in an hour, because I don't have self-doubt, I'm confident and I'm happy. I don't feel like I have imposter syndrome anymore. The feelings of what you'd said would deplete. It would go down. I'd be satisfied going, I'm an all right person. He has work to do. He's not there himself. It's fine, but I'm okay. Whereas, again, because I wasn't happy in the past, I would dwell on what you would have said to me. And I'd lose sleep over it and I'd go into a hole. So that's why I don't think happiness is an emotion. I could dip into sadness during my happiness state, but that sadness will slowly disappear and I'm still happy.
Yep. Yeah. I love that share.
Yeah, thanks.
Talk to me, who's been your greatest teacher in your life?
That's a good one. I'm going to sound so cliche here. Oh, man. But I can't help it. I have to come back to... Ooh. I always think if these people are listening. Do you know what I mean? This one won't be. Growing up, being a basketball player, I really admired Michael Jordan. And I don't necessarily mean in the sense of the basketball skills. Things might have changed since the last documentary of The Last Dance that came out a few years ago, because there's certain things that came out in that documentary that I probably wouldn't do myself. But before that documentary and the way I grew up, I just loved the way he committed to something. And I think I've always committed to everything I've ever gone for. Traveling, chasing my dreams, my goals, never giving up, failing and failing and failing over and over and over again. The famous advert where he said, I failed over again. And he went through stats of how many shots he missed and how many games, winning shots he missed, and so on and so on. And then he said at the end, that's why I'm so successful. And I believe that's really kind of what gave me the thought process of what made me so determined to go and get the things I want. And I've got everything I want so far. Has everything been dandy through this conversation? I think you know that I've had many pitfalls, but I think I've got the majority of things that I've always gone for. It's never always been an easy ride. Michael Jordan, for that reason. I had a guy growing up, and he'd just been here for New Year. He came to visit me from England, and he's been a guest on my podcast, my second guest. I actually filmed with him first, but I published his episode second. Don Johnson, he was kind of like my basketball dad growing up. He was my basketball coach, my mentor, my guide. But now he's just my mate, and I love it. He just listens to me. And anytime I'm dipping with the podcast and I'm not going to quit, but I'm just doubting or going out of it, he just speaks to me and just pumps me up, and he just says all the right things at the right time. He's a famous drummer, actually, from a band called A Certain Ratio. And this is the type of person he is. I didn't know he was a famous drummer until about 10 years of being his friend. I met him as a 10-year-old, and he told me when I was like 21 that he was a drummer, and I had no freaking clue. And that's just how humble this guy is. And, I'm half the man of him. He's an awesome guy. I just love him. I'm going to get upset about him, actually. He got rushed into hospital when he was here, actually, so that was quite daunting. But so he was a role model. So Don and Mike, my PE teacher. I think why I'm a teacher, the way I teach, is my PE teacher growing up, Mr. Hewison. He always used to shout down. I was telling this story to my son the other day. He shouted down every time he'd see me, we'd play basketball, and I was his captain. He put me as captain for 5 years straight. And he always used to shout down the corridor, Whitey, are you going to play? Are you going to hit a three for me tonight? The gist of this story is he was himself. He was just himself. He sometimes even swear. He was just himself. And I think he doesn't know this. He probably would never hear this. But he just was himself. And I think that's what made me want to be myself, whether I go to dinner, whether I go to meetings, whether I go to work, or I'm on the podcast. I just want to be myself. That's it. Yeah.
I think I always ask that question of every guest, and who's been your greatest teacher, right? And the interesting thing is, none of us have just got one great teacher, right? Everyone has kind of, whether it's our parents, whether it's our grandparents, whether it's our brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties, bosses, teachers, anyone that we come across in life, they all shape us, right?
Absolutely.
They all, we work out, sometimes some of our worst teachers actually are our best teachers.
Yeah, agreed.
Some of the people that we see in life that are doing the wrong things actually shape us into going, no, I'm going to do something differently, right? And they are actually one of our greatest teachers in a different way, right? So
completely agree.
But I always ask that question because it gets people to delve in, and I get varying answers, but yeah, I loved your answers there. They were awesome.
I couldn't answer the opposite way because we probably hurt a lot of feelings.
Yeah, no, that's all right. Andy, I want to talk to you. We're always, as you know, we're always we're always learning. We're always growing. we're a work in progress till the day we die, right?
Mhm.
What's one thing that you haven't quite worked out about yourself yet?
Oh, never been asked that one. Can you really know what you've not worked out about yourself?
What's something that you're working on, or you want to work on, or you've kind of realized you need to work on that you quite haven't unlocked?
Ooh. How to stay really consistent with everything that I give advice on to other people for myself.
Yep.
That is hard. I can give all the
Mm.
advice in the world, but for me, because of my life with school holidays, it's conducting those daily rituals, even when I don't have the structure, like going to work every day. I think I'd probably really struggle if I was self-employed. But if I had the safety of being self-employed, maybe I'd really set those firm boundaries and have those, first 2-3 hours in the morning to do all those things. But yeah, I struggle to be real consistent. I know I can come back. That's one thing I have conquered, but the next conquer is being consistent. But I think I value being okay with sometimes just getting it wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think the key thing in a fact in life is that we're all hypocrites.
Yeah,
Right.
agreed. I'm
Advice that
definitely
we
one.
give, we've always broken. We give people rules and guidelines that they have to follow that we've broken ourselves, right? Like, hey, we're parents. We give advice sometimes to our kids that we go, "Ugh, I didn't follow that when I was a kid."
Yeah,
But
100%.
when we're all like in life, we are all hypocrites. I don't care. There is not one hypocrite on the planet. Like someone that's not a hypocrite on the planet. There just isn't. Now I've got to say, Andy, we have reached the point. You are now the longest episode on Share with Steve.
You can edit it down if you want.
Yeah. Maybe. Hey, maybe.
Do a 2
But
or 3 part.
it's been an awesome chat. I'm grateful for your insights. It's been really good to dig into your story a little bit more, dig into some of those coping mechanisms, things that you obviously provide advice to listeners around bullying, around toxicity in the workplace. I loved your insights and reflections on your teaching career and digging into some of that as well. So there's been some absolutely awesome topics, which I think listeners will get a lot out of.
I hope so.
If people are wanting to follow you, to reach out to you, I know you're very active on social media, as we were talking about. Where can people find you?
leadingourOwnWay.com is the podcast, and everything is on there. The links are on there, but it pretty much just stands alone on Instagram and TikTok. It's Leading Our Own Way pretty much on everything. My Instagram page for myself is awhite2345. So awhite as in the color white, because of my accent. Sometimes people think I'm saying something different, but awhite2345, the 2 Michael Jordan numbers.
Yep.
So pretty much Leading Our Own Way. If you type that in, it'll come straight up probably. And we're verified on Instagram as well. So
yeah, awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to keeping in touch. I wish you all the best with all the work that you're doing, the podcast. I'm sure there's another book in the work somewhere there as well.
I did see a psychic, and somebody told me I'm going to write another book around connection and relationship. So I've wrote it down to see if I do it in the next 10 years. We'll see. I don't want to write another book, but somebody's told me I'm going to, so we'll see.
Perfect. I'm booked next week to, I did some meditation recently, and it led me to, seeing an energy healer. And next week I got drawn to a psychic. And out of all the psychics in Southeast Queensland, the psychic that I was drawn to after meditating, and then the one I actually booked in, I was chatting to my sister a couple of days ago, and she said, "Oh, that's the same one I saw." That's the universe.
You should interview her.
Yeah.
You should.
Yep.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it's good. All right, mate.
Well,
thank you very much.
First of all, before you do go,
Yeah.
I do want to say everybody should tune into yours, because your journey is powerful. And I want to thank you for you coming onto my podcast and sharing your journey on my journey. So people, please tune into Steve's episode as well on Leading Our Own Way.
Cool. Yeah, it's the sister or the brother episode, whatever you want to say it. They come in twos, right? Listen to Andy, listen to Steve, and then put them together.
Brilliant.
All right, brother. It's
Thank
been awesome. Thanks, mate.
Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Steve.
mate.